Okay, this is the Node.js LTS working group meeting for May 2nd. Light crew today. Pretty much, how it's been for the past few times we met. Pretty light agenda and pretty light group of folks. We got Trevor Norris, Miles Borens, Michael Dawson, and myself, James Snow. On the agenda, we only have 2 items on the agenda. I wanted to add a third one to talk about upcoming releases. Since we only have Trevor here for a few minutes, let's talk about issue 86, track backporting of the async wrap changes. And I guess this is specifically in terms of backporting those to version 4. Where are we at on that, Trevor?
Okay, is there anything you just want to get information on the state of it, or how complicated it would be? Or
I can help lead that a little bit more. So there's been like requests for the async wrap changes that are existing on V5 and now on V6 to be backported to LTS. That interface is not considered to be stable. It's experimental, so I believe that there would be no problems with backporting the implementation. I believe there are quite a few customers who would probably like to see that in LTS before it moves into maintenance mode, basically. And so we have this issue where we've been tracking, the various changes that have been landing and various regressions that those have taken. Although I don't think there've been too many regressions. But I guess, Trevor, the question to you then would be: A, do you think that there's value in backporting it to begin with? And if so, how much effort would it be to do the backport, and what would be like the possible regressions, or how volatile could it be to the rest of Node?
okay, as far as usefulness, I think that would be determined by how many people will be sticking around on 4. If people are migrating pretty steadily to 6, then I wouldn't worry about it. If there's a significant number of users who are sticking around on 4, then be reconsidered. As for difficulty, it's slowly getting more complicated. I'm working on a patch right now to make it so inspection of the handle in the init callback can never abort, whereas right now there are specific cases. Like basically we just have a warning that says never blindly inspect the handle in the init because it's in the middle of construction, right? And I'm making it so that is never an issue. And then another problem has to do with garbage collection handling. So conceptually, it's nothing difficult, but as far as code changes, I haven't done a comparison to see how difficult it would be to backport, like all the TD implementation details.
Right. I mean, in terms of people moving up to 6, I think the recommendation is don't do that till October when it's LTS anyway, and then people will move at some rate. But so I think that says we're probably at least 6 to 8 months before we figure a lot of people will have moved off of 4.
Yeah. I mean, 4 active LTS expires in a year from now. I anticipate we're probably going to still have people on 4 through probably June or July of next year before we really start getting people migrating over to even 6 LTS. I mean, hopefully it goes sooner than that, but we'll see. But I anticipate having V4 users for quite a while. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sort of painting the best case. I think what you said is the more realistic case. So it sounds like so then I think that there will be people using 4. So it's then the question of how much the value versus risk trade-off, right?
Yeah, so as far as potential breakage, there's only one thing specifically I can think of that presents that issue, and that was that we needed to remove a specific try catch inside make callback. Some testing was done, and I'm pretty sure it's backwards compatible, but we need to do more. Other than that, it's either additive or doing things like preventing aborts when you're using some internals, since async wrap exposes some of those internals. One issue for sure, and this will be an issue going forward, is since async wrap tells you exactly what's happening when it's happening, whenever internals change, you can expect call stack order to change. Like, the order of events can change depending on 4 or 6 when you're setting up a TLS connection, right? The performance improvements were done, and then if you look at the init stack and the init pre-post stack for 4, it is different than 6. And
right. Is that anything you expect people to be trying to depend on?
I hope not.
Okay, and I guess we've clearly documented that. Sorry, you can't, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like.
Okay. And the reason people want to backport it to 4 now is so that they could write, like, this lets you write better tools.
Yeah, I know. There's been some interest in terms of debugging, and also being able to maintain long stack traces, error handling, keep APMs with like metrics from it, because you can keep track of how many handles are open and alive and en route, how long the callbacks actually take to run, things like that.
Will any of that stuff change to the next release, or?
What do you mean?
Well, like, do the things you just mentioned depend on internals that will change between 4 and 6, or is it, I write my code now, and if it's backported to 4, my tool will now work with 4 and 6?
Yeah, well, okay, so if the changes are backported, they should work just fine, because those are each like the pre-post segments, those run around specifically the user's callback.
Okay.
So that shouldn't change. There will be a few things in like the HTTP parser, depending on when that calls back out to JS for performance things, but the user doesn't have direct control over the HTTP parser anyway. The only reason we expose that is so that they can maintain the async stack while requests are being processed. But there's nothing of interest like within that small segment in terms of profiling.
Right.
So, Trevor, are you aware of anybody actually going through and actively backporting these to before? Is that something you're doing? Honestly, if nobody's actually doing the work, I think it's kind of a moot point to discuss it.
I've been working on it on and off, but I've also been simultaneously, like right now, I'm writing up docs and fixing docs about what the final implementation will be, depending based on other people's feedback. And so instead of going through and saying, okay, I'm just going to backport all the changes, I want to get further in and at least get settled more on what the API will be, and then saying, okay, well, backporting this subset of changes doesn't make any sense because those are going to be overridden, a dozen commits down the line because of a difference in discussion.
That certainly makes sense to me to get, like, I've seen VPS, and it's something I want to take a look at it, but I think you're basically just saying you're waiting for that to settle before backporting anything, right?
Yeah, I have backported some stuff. Just in practice, like if you look at my commit sets, I've been meticulous about keeping things in subsets of commits so that it's very easy to backport, and if there are merged conflicts, those will be as easy as possible to resolve. There are no two commits, or like no two sets of changes that are merged into a single commit. So just trying to make that as easy as possible.
Okay. So I guess maybe James's question was, once that's settled, would you plan to backport them if people are asking, because it sounded like the question was, if nobody's going to do it, then why discuss it? But
no, I will. I will.
Planning to do it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If the conclusion is that people want it backported and that backporting is feasible, I will do the work to backport everything to 4.
Yeah, from what I understand, it provided the risk is acceptable, it seems like a good thing in terms of if people can start to write tools as opposed to having to wait till 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, some of the, if any of the internal changes or whatever cause any kind of regressions, we got to watch out for that. I mean, but otherwise, I don't see any problem with backporting it. Just people need to understand that it's not actually supported. So if anything that breaks, not fixing its not going to be a priority.
Is it likely to have any performance impact, do you think? Or
no, I have been unless you're using it, this should have less than 1% of a performance impact just being in there.
So we really think not much of a risk in terms of anybody else having a problem.
No, performance-wise, nobody will notice.
Yeah.
That's been honestly that's been one of the blockers, is figuring out how to do some of this in a way that doesn't even show up on your call graph.
Yep.
Because that was one of the outlying failure points of domains, and that it wraps so many things and causes so many extra calls that, yeah, it does cause noticeable performance regression once you actually start using it.
Right. Now, are the people who want it to be backported different from the people who will be upgrading to Node? The other question in my mind is, if we don't backport it, does it mean people will upgrade to Node 6 faster?
Possibly. Honestly, I kind of see this feature as more of an LTS type feature. I don't see as many of the hacker community using this as much as companies that want metrics and information and whatnot from their applications at that scale.
Right.
So I guess then, the same question is, would this make it more likely that companies would adopt v6 instead of keeping a whole bunch of people in legacy longer, if that's even an option?
I mean, it's possible if it's released in 6, and I can't imagine the 4 and the 6 going out at the same time. I mean, it's possible, but it would be a driving factor, but I'm not sure it's big enough to be the thing that causes people or companies to switch over to 6.
Yeah, I was just asking, just trying to get a sense of if you backport everything, then there's no point for the next release. This sounded like one of the bigger pieces, but again, it also sounds like something where if you can do the better inspection, that's actually useful to get into people's hands earlier than later.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure people enjoyed it. I don't know, I think we just have to talk to the companies to say hey, here's a feature, here's the API, here's what you gain from it. Would you consider switching over to 6 if this were only available in 6?
Right. Who do we have asking for it to be backported now? Is there a list of people or?
Microsoft is one I can think of, and then other companies have expressed interest in it. I mean, part of this goes all the way back to when New Relic had the initial async listener implementation, right? So I know APMs would like it to use it for their internal tooling because it caused less of a performance regression while allowing them to collect the same metrics that they're collecting now.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, honestly, I feel like some companies would use it, but probably where it'd get the most usage is by APMs or other tooling that incorporate it, and then other many users use those because
Right.
the raw tooling is very raw. The whole point of it is to be a very basic set of hooks, and then others would write tooling into those.
Right.
Okay. Like I said, I mean, until the work is actually done to, that it's been backported, I think all we can really do at this point is just say, okay, we can continue to track it. Yeah, and just kind of go from there. I don't think there's anything actionable we can do right now, though.
Right. It sounds like the next step is for that EPS to stabilize and then to have, you know, I don't know how much work it is, but to put together the change sets for the backport. But I guess from the discussion so far, it doesn't sound like there's major objections, right? Like, I'd hate to send Trevor off and have him create a whole bunch of change sets when we think it's not going to be landed, versus
Well,
thinking it will be landed, right?
well, what I'll do is just go through and basically do a run to assess like how difficult would this be, what issues may arise because of it,
Yeah.
and I'll present that, and then it can be decided at that point whether I should go through the effort of actually doing the full backport.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, nothing actionable right now.
Okay.
Specific to V4.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Is that all the questions?
Yeah, that's all I had.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for finding the time.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so next issue is number 87. Track backporting path optimizations. Miles, have you been actively looking at this one?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've just been trying to keep my eyes on any regressions and any changes that come in. This is an interesting one, like with the doc changes that accidentally got backported. But for the most part, like, I'm still not feeling convinced that the performance optimizations of path are worth these potential edge cases.
Yeah, I agree.
And as far as I can tell, we still haven't hit a point where there's any pain. I'd like to keep tracking the regressions in here in case we ever have to. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It was just too. There were too many edges that were failing with that. I think we've finally found them all, hopefully. But it just makes me way too nervous to actually get into V4. Maybe we can look at it again in a few months.
Yeah. The other thing too with the changing underlying real path, like, we're going to have all these other flags on path that are going to be hitting, and it's not going to be clear if it was these changes anymore.
Oh yeah.
So I'm pretty solid about not. I mean, maybe we should even just close it, thinking about that.
Like, you could say we'll close it until there's like pain that would cause you to say we should revisit. Because really, it sounds like it's risky enough that unless there's clear pain to be avoided by backporting, and we expect the number of changes to sort of slow down in 4.2. So.
So I'm up for closing that issue if everyone is.
Agree.
Yeah, maybe with the comment that we can reopen if we do see the pain.
Yeah. Seems fine.
Okay. Well, that one was easy. Okay, so the other agenda item would basically be what is our plan for upcoming releases. And we've had some inquiries about version 10 or 0.10. I know Fedora wanted to get a bug fix for, I can't remember right off the top of my head exactly what it was, but it was, I think it was a crypto-related thing. He wanted to get that in, but it was really kind of a question of, when are we actually going to do another 0.10 release? If the upcoming OpenSSL update is going to require us to do updates anyway, maybe we just bundle it all up and go from there. I know we typically want to keep security-related releases isolated, but we don't have enough pending in staging, I don't think, that will warrant a release by itself.
So is there a burning reason to get it into 10? Like, are people waiting for it, or?
It came from a specific, like a user request for this particular one. Fedora is working with this person to try to figure out what the problem is. They currently have the patch floating in their in their own build of Node, but if they update, they would like to have it already landed.
Okay.
So they said that it's not a huge rush. They just want to have an idea of whether it's going to be there or not.
Right. It seems fair. If it's a problem, it's a fix. So I guess I guess it also depends on how serious the security release is, right?
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, the other approach would be to just spin 2 releases in a row.
Yeah, so that was like one of the questions that I was wondering too is, since we usually release on Tuesdays and usually on LTS we'll do a security only update. Yeah, like what we should do. I think the last OpenSSL update on 10 and 12 came only with OpenSSL, but the last NPM update on 10 and 12 came with a few other changes as well. So I would imagine if these OpenSSL changes are not touching parts of Node that Node is relying on and they're low risk for us, then maybe they should be able to come in with other changes as well. But I don't know how.
Well, it's more the.
I think that's a good gauge, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the reverse, exactly.
I don't think we should have consecutive releases of those lines. Even V4, I wouldn't do like this week and next week.
Miles, the next V4, I know we have some pending minors. Are you planning on getting those landed and bumping to 4.5?
The next release, I was planning on doing a patch release. There's that regression that one, there was an individual whose name's escaping me at the moment, was just like getting really, really bad problems in production with that we cut a special release for. So that individual's been patiently waiting for that patch to land, so I don't want to put minors in prior to that.
Wait, what patch is this?
Give me 1 second here. It's the supporting unlimited synchronous cork and uncork cycles.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that was like a weird regression in streams, and I'd like to see that come in on a patch before we do a minor. So I was imagining we'd do like a load of all of the patches that are waiting right now, and then follow that up with a minor afterwards in the following release.
Yeah, as long as when do you plan on doing that minor release then?
I had not thought about the scheduling yet. I think the last LTS meeting, Michael and James had discussed a 1 month release cycle now, so I was thinking maybe something along a month. That would give us time to cut an RC and do some testing on it and stuff.
Seems fine to me.
Okay, so I mean, the schedule for the OpenSSL that should be in the next week or two, right? Is there a specific?
They're coming out today, or sorry, tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, yeah.
And if they're high, I'd expect. I guess it depends how they turn out, but yeah, I think within the next week for sure, I'd be guessing.
Okay, so if we did a security release along these lines in the next week, and then did a patch on V4 by the end of the month, is that reasonable, Miles? Then we can look at doing the minor bump after that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Like, I mean, it's just a matter of, like, this person's been waiting for this patch for almost a month already.
Yeah.
That's like kind of the only thing, because there was another security release with the NPM release that pushed the 5.10 release, and then it's just been like a really unfortunate set of circumstances that's caused this patch to take so long to land. But, we have to be responsible with the security release first, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, the change in 0.10, does it apply to the other lines as well? Or?
Oh, the changes to V4, not to 10.
No.
Okay, sorry, somehow I heard that they found an issue in 10.
Yeah, there was. There's the one that Fedor mentioned was
right.
specifically V10. I don't know if it also needs to land in the other ones. I think it was a bug that Fedora had fixed
Okay.
after 10, but you just running into users that are encountering it on 0.10 that aren't able to upgrade yet.
I mean, because it kind of sounds like if we said we'd plan a set of releases that for whatever platforms that need those other things by the end of the month. It didn't sound like they wanted to know what was going to happen. They didn't necessarily need it this week, right?
Correct.
Right. Just to Jeremiah's comment that let's not do them in a row, but we could say that it's kind of like we should evaluate at the end of each month, and if there's something that makes sense, we would put one out. Otherwise, we'd skip that month for those lines.
So in terms of the actual releases for V4, V012, and 0.10 with OpenSSL, assuming it is something that we need to get a release out for, how do we want to do this? Miles, do you want to take the V4 and I'll take the 0.10 and 0.12?
I can handle that.
I think then between Rod and myself, we'll take V6 or V5 or something then, unless he's already said something about doing some of the older releases. Because usually it's been Rod that's done the 0.10 and 0.12 security fixes, hasn't it?
I've done a few of them. Rod's done a few of
Okay.
them. It really depends on who's available to do it. If he wants to do it, then fine. Okay, so these lines for next week.
Maybe we should take that back to the OpenSSL thread then and just ask and just figure out there who should do what release. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's fine. Let's see. Okay, so and then so that's within the next week. And then look at a new V4 patch by end of May, with possibly a minor by end of June. That sounds right, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And then I guess like that schedule could potentially change tomorrow based on what happens with the OpenSSL release, or is that just we'll do an OpenSSL release that's standalone no matter what?
I think it depends on what the review is. If it comes up and it's not critical, then I don't think we should have to spin up special security release for it.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, like if it's basically doesn't apply, then yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can look at I don't think we have anything like really pending for 0.12. Do we? Let me look really quick. 0.12 staging.
12 is dead, man.
Yeah. There's been nothing landed in staging for 12.
No one uses 0.12 either. Well, I mean, people do, but not very many. So.
Yeah.
So they're either on 10 still or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with 0.12.
So we can say look at a 0.10 release. Let's say by time in June. And we can look at the schedule again, or do we want to say end of May?
There is that. I mean, yeah. I don't know, Miles, if you have a feel for whether the people waiting for that patch, whether it's 2 months is not no big deal, or.
To be honest, I think that the person who's waiting for that cork patch and potentially other people who are being hit by this regression are not going to be super thrilled. I'd have to go and check the stats on that, but I mean, that change came in, it landed in 5.11, but it came in right before 5.10, but just didn't get the review in time for 5.10.1. So I mean, we're talking like this change was coming in around the time of the VM summit.
Yeah. So I know we typically don't like putting additional things into a security release. And I think for something like this, it might be worthwhile making an exception if we know that it addresses it and we know the users are asking for it.
Yep, and it's been in production in 5.10 for a while, and they've been using it. I cut them like a release candidate that had that one commit on top of the head of 4.4.3,
Yeah.
and they've reported no regressions on it.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, I mean, Michael, how do you feel about if we do end up having to do an OpenSSL special release, if we went ahead and bundled this one commit in that as well?
I guess it would if it would also matter how severe the vulnerabilities are, right? Like it's kind of that risk trade-off. If they're medium or low, then yeah, it's easier to say than if it's like super high and people need to upgrade immediately, right? Because just throwing that one extra,
Yeah, it could throw a wrench into the stuff.
right? You have one other change, and if it's really important that you upgrade immediately, that's kind of the risk of why we usually try and keep them separate. Where if it's like, well, you'd like to upgrade, but it's not critical, then yeah, mixing them together is an easier decision.
Mm-hmm. So I guess let's. Do you want to try to make sure that a couple of us are like? I'll be around all day tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll be on IRC and accessible. So maybe just like reconvene a discussion offline from this conversation when we have that information.
Yeah, sounds good.
Which information?
How the how the OpenSSL upgrade affects Node.
Right.
Like,
okay. Yeah.
All the vulnerabilities that are in there are actually things that affect and matter.
I'll be around tomorrow too. I think most of us will be because we've already been notified of this. So.
I mean, I think otherwise, it sounds like the end of the month, would be a better target than June, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're already saying that there would be a v4 patch by the end of May. This uncork fix is not a minor, right? It's a patch, Miles?
Yeah, it's a patch.
Okay, so either way, it would be at the end of May, by the end of May.
Right.
So that one wouldn't slip. The things that we're talking about slipping till June are any of the pending minors that have built up.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you were saying
Yeah.
10 maybe slipping that, but yes.
No.
Yeah, no.
No matter what, we'd have a new v4 patch release by the end of May.
Right, but it's for 10 that they want, right? So like, would we give them a new V10?
There's two separate patches there that I think you're confusing. The one that Fedora had, that's one for 0.10. That's separate from the cork patch.
Okay. So that's the one I was asking if who's asking for it and how soon.
Yeah, that's V4.
Yeah.
I think we should probably try to get the cork patch in unless the OpenSSL thing is really critical.
Yeah.
Because I understand that's not a particularly nice regression to already have in a line like that, and it probably should have been fixed sooner already.
Yeah. And I can imagine that there's quite a few people who are probably not upgrading and not being vocal because they're hitting that edge case and don't know why.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a plan. I mean, if at all possible, let's definitely try to get the cork patch in as soon as possible. So if the OpenSSL, I mean, I don't know what standard we want to say, how critical would the OpenSSL updates need to be for us to decide not to get that patch in?
I think it's easier just to look at them.
Okay.
Right, like
I think we'll just know.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'm looking at it. We can try and figure out how to do it, but until you see them, it's pretty hard to.
Yeah, I think generally, if anything can allow like a direct outside attack. So there's a lot of like OpenSSL things that are like, use weird configuration and things and stuff that don't really apply to Node. But if there's something with oh, you can bypass X security check from like when we're doing like HTTPS, that would be pretty critical. And we would probably want to roll that out without anything else, so it can be immediately updated on everyone's servers.
So, like, I guess one thing that maybe we could say that make it simpler, is everyone available? Is there a time that we can find where we can all do an extra hangout on air before the release if we can't reach consensus online?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much available all this week in the afternoon, so I can meet up anytime.
I'm in the same position.
So, does anyone remember exactly the time that the release comes out tomorrow? 1 second. Around approximately 1200 to 1500 UTC. I don't remember what those times are in my time zone. I think probably towards the end of the day is what we should aim for, because
It's
people.
11. It's 11. 15 UTC. It will be 11 a.m. Eastern Standard, 8 a.m. Pacific.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, it will probably be a little bit before it's evaluated, anyways. It's hard to know. It depends how long Shieki stays up and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
He's usually pretty quick at getting the reviews in, but
Yeah.
definitely be sensitive to his availability. It's pretty bad timing time of the night for him.
Probably towards later in the day tomorrow, though. I think if we're gonna have a meeting on that sort of thing. Anything else anyone has to discuss?
No, I think we're pretty much done. All right, next meeting. We've been going for every roughly 2 weeks. Schedule got kind of iffy there for the past month because of conflicts. Do we want to keep it on the every other week?
Yeah, that works for me.
I think we should just keep it on every other week and cancel as accordingly if there's nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was going to say if the agenda is not posted by the day before, probably assume it's canceled. Because if there's nothing posted, that means nothing's pending.
Eventually, when I get time around to doing it, the Node.js GitHub bot's going to be able to make these things anyways. Apparently, the hard part's actually making a Google Doc from the API. But that's something I'm going to work towards, and then it can just check if there's like any agenda labels.
When you say the hard part,
eventually this probably won't even be a problem.
when you say the hard part is making a Google Doc,
Yes, from the Google APIs. At least
Right.
that's what I was told by Rod. I haven't 100% looked into it yet.
I just will mention I've been writing a couple of npm wrappers to let me upload docs to Google Doc. So
Okay. Maybe if you could link those, that'd be great.
yeah, I'll link the GitHub repos. I haven't published them yet, but they may not be the right things, but if they are, then it could be helpful.
Yeah, even if we can at least put a template and upload a file as a template, then
Yeah,
that'd be better than what we have now, which is.
it's possible the hard part might actually be setting it to share to the correct people.
Yeah, that part I haven't done, right? Like, I can upload the docs, and the ones I want to upload I want to be private anyway. So.
The sharing is something it's also simple enough to do right before the meeting.
Yeah, I think actually if you set it directly, you can set it so that everything you upload there is shareable. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
Anyway, where do you want me to post it to? I can.
Maybe DM me on IRC. Does that work?
Sorry, say that again. Or
direct message me on IRC. Does that work?
Yeah. I will look you up in there and send them to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
So, okay, I think we're done.
Okay.
All right, take it easy.
Talk to you guys later.
Take
Bye.
care.